Odegaard, golazo!
This is Arsecast Extra.
Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, not with James from Gunnerblog because he is away on this crazy thing called a holiday. I've got no idea what that is, but good luck to him. With me today in his place, off the bench, Tayo Popoola. Goodly morning to you, Tayo.
Can I say goodly morning? That feels like I'm really stepping. That's like putting on James's number. That's like putting on the number 10 shirt. Like as a, I'll say buenos dias.
Okay, buenos dias.
Buenos dias, because I'm also on holiday. But you managed to write me in. I'm saying this to you from Ibiza. So sorry.
So you're in Spain. James is in Spain, and I'm sitting here. It's lovely here in Dublin. By the way, it's great. It's like I can see some blue sky. It's good. Yeah. Anyway,
it's but thank you for having me on. It's always nice to do this, not least because I have to put my phone mentions on silent as it just goes kaboom.
Yeah, a bit crazy.
But it shows that people care. There's lots of questions on lots of themes, but we'll get to that.
I'm sure we will. So I mean, like on holidays, Arsenal winning, life is good, I guess. Can't complain.
I mean, I came on holiday just after the City game, I think, or was I here for it? And then obviously you got the international bit, which helps you forget about football and relax and then get it out all your system. Now we're good again. Now it's completely back on. I messaged Orbinho this week to say how many times has a team won the league after losing the first 3 games of the season?
Right.
And it has happened twice.
Okay.
It has happened in, I am looking through for Orbinho's answer. It happened to Liverpool in 1904, I think.
Right.
And so it's happened twice, basically. I'm going to find it in a sec. And the point is that if it hasn't happened for a while, then it can happen again.
It's overdue, is what you're saying.
It is absolutely overdue that we may very well win the league. Put it this way, it's not impossible that we'll win the league this season. Here we are, Orbinho. 2 teams have won the title after losing their opening 3 matches. Liverpool in 05-06 and perhaps Omenili, if that's a word. It isn't. Burnley in 1920 and 21.
Right, so it is well and truly overdue. If it's been 1920-21, it feels like this is something that needs to happen again pretty soon.
Exactly, and as Smithy at Steve_JN Smith said at the time, if the answer is yes, then it means it can happen, and if the answer is no, then it means that it's due to happen. So my friends, it is possible that we may win the league, scoring 1 goal a game between now and the end of the season.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Like 35 goals scored all season, 35 clean sheets, and we somehow managed to walk our way to... I mean, 35 by 3, it's still a lot of points. It's 105 points.
There you go.
That'd win us the title, I reckon.
I'm just saying believe. That's what I'm here for today, and maybe that's the holiday in my head. But yeah, it's possible.
Okay, all right. Well, I look forward to this, and people can snip out this particular bit of audio. You know the way they always do that quote thing when somebody makes an idiot of themselves. Far be it from for me to say that that's what you've done here, but I look forward to this being a meme, some audio soundtracks, all of those kind of things taking place. So.
I like the fact that you've made an idiot of yourself, but it's on your podcast, mate, so I want you to share the blame.
That's true. I'm the one who extended the invitation to you, so there we go. So look, Arsenal beat Burnley 1-0. it wasn't the most fun game I think I've ever watched in my entire life, but there was something pleasing about the last two games, in the sense that when I'm looking at this team, where we were a few weeks ago and how difficult everything was and how miserable everybody was, for good reason, what I wanted to see from the games that we were, in inverted commas, supposed to win were things that I could get a little bit encouraged about. And I still think we've got some way to go when it comes to clicking as an attacking force, as our 2 goals in 2 games has demonstrated. But I do think there were things that we can be pleased about, that we can be encouraged about. And when you go to a place like Burnley, you've got to be defensively committed to deal with the kind of football that they play, to deal with the crowd, to deal with their manager, all of that kind of stuff. And this sort of, I hate to use the word narrative, but you know what it's like, that Arsenal are a soft touch. We're easily bullied. We're not quite up for the fight. We're not as physically robust as some of the teams. Like if you get into our faces, we don't like it, etc., etc. So I think one of the first things I think we could discuss about this game is the fact that, Burnley tested us. They weren't brilliant or anything like it, but we know they're going to be a physical test, and we more than stood up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually it was actually helpful that it quite obviously came up before the game. It always does, as you say, with these kind of fixtures. And I think Mikel Arteta addressed it on his Friday conference, didn't he? It was like, there is this story that we are this, but we need to make sure that we're not soft in the middle. We're not like, so they went with that in mind. It's almost like those days when when Ferguson would say, well, I hope we get a strong ref. Do you know what I mean? It's like just putting it out front to make sure that whatever the other failings might be, this wasn't going to be it, and it wasn't. As I'm sure we'll come on to, really strong defensive performance, and it's great seeing sort of Gabriel step into that. Specifically, he stood out for me, obviously. And we did have that defensive solidity, and that's something that has been a concern and a priority for Arteta ever since he took over. I mean, it seems like a long time ago now, but we were leaking goals all over the place. So we've definitely got that bit right. But something that I'm sure we're going to come on to, not least because half the questions have alluded to that, are the issues further forward. But from defensively, from dealing with as you say, the crazy crowd, there's something about Sean Dyche and his lot. And he really is stepping so beautifully into Allardyce 02. The
Pulis zone.
The Pulis to infinity zone. It absolutely fits in perfectly. So it's really, really pleasing to go, for us to go there and to not fall into the story. Because that Dyche would have done that. It's something about like certain kind of managers. They always used to be centre halves and stuff like that. That sort of laughing on the sideline. Well, if that's a foul these days, well, do you know what I mean? Like,
Look, his leg's hanging off. Back in my day, he used to be able to like go on the pitch with a cutlass and slash the man to death. But these soft footballers these days, he is a bit like that, isn't he?
But we didn't fall for. I mean, who did they beat up the week before?
Everton. They played Everton on Monday, and lost.
But not without leaving a few tackles on people. So it fit. It was nice to put that out the way, basically, very quickly. So that's definitely a reason to be cheerful. Yeah,
for sure. Burnley 1 point so far this season. They've played 5, drawn 1, lost 4. So. I mean, on the basis that their form hasn't been great. I think I was watching Match of the Day on Saturday night, and it said something along the lines of Burnley having not won a home game since January, which seems remarkable. But even so, that despite that record, when they face a team like Arsenal, we know that Sean Dyche has got a bit of previous with us, with Arsene Wenger, with the club. Some of the moments, some of the defeats that have been inflicted upon them where he has felt, aggrieved. They're definitely going to be up for it in that sense. Although I was, relatively pleased that there weren't any tackles like we saw against Everton. I was a bit worried for a couple of our players that maybe they might get subjected to something like that, but there really wasn't anything too brutal. A couple of cynical fouls, all right, but nothing too over the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was, and there does seem to be a steel or a resolve about the players, about some of the players, either collectively, they were determined not to be caught out and become that Arsenal cliche. And so yeah, that was that's something for us to hopefully build on. I mean, it has to be something to build on because we are deficient in other areas. But for that not to be the issue, for us to not be a pushover anymore, for us to go, quote unquote, up north and not get rolled over is nice to have that one less of a problem.
Yeah, it was a pretty attacking lineup as well, wasn't it, from Mikel Arteta? When you start with Thomas Partey at the base of midfield, you've got Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Saka, Pepe, and Aubameyang ahead of him. I wasn't really expecting that. I mean, I was pleased by that aspect of it, I have to say, because I feel like sometimes he has been a bit too cautious when it comes to his team lineups. And I do understand it to an extent, but there comes a point where you want to see him say, well, fuck it. Let's just have a go and let's see what we can produce. And I'm sure we'll come on to the fact that from an attacking perspective, it didn't quite click, even though I think there are things that we could be encouraged about. Is it a case that you're worried when you see that happen, where, he picks this lineup, it doesn't quite come off the way we would have liked? Is that a case that, well, is that the best we can do? Or is it a case that, well, this is the first time he's really picked that lineup, maybe it needs a bit more time to really find its momentum?
Yeah, well, the fan in me wants it to be the latter, obviously. But I also think that it's become too easy to slip into the thought that for us to be defensively solid, we have to be kind of boring or dour with it. Like, I mean, having someone strong defensively like Thomas Partey, who is also, strong going forward. That's how good teams build, right? You know what I mean? If you take someone, for some reason, I'll apologise, that Busquets is the first person that came to mind. Busquets was defensively obviously fantastic, but he could play football. So it doesn't have to be one at the cost of the other. So that defensive, you can be defensively strong with attacking players in the team if those at the base can do more. I mean, we're talking we've had years of like El Neni and Xhaka and that sideways passing, whether it was Denilson before or not. These players came in, could do one thing but couldn't do the other. I think trying to get the team to play better attacking cohesive football, but with solid midfielders and a base, defenders who can play through the lines, and midfielders at the base of the team who can actually also contribute offensively. So that has to be worked on still, of course. But I'd like to see that team develop. I'd like to see that attacking formation going forward, because God damn it, we need goals.
Yeah, I mean, we do need goals, so we might as well talk about that side of the performance where, from an attacking perspective, it didn't quite work. I think there was something maybe just a little bit different, where Arteta's teams have often been a bit toothless, haven't really created enough chances, haven't quite got the ball into areas where we can hurt the opposition. I think there was evidence that we did that against Burnley, in the sense that I thought what really let us down was the decision making in the final third. The last pass a couple of times where it could have been played into the path of an attacker, which would have created an opportunity. A first touch, for example, there were two for Bukayo Saka where if his first touch had been as good as it normally is, he's basically in a position where he's got a one-on-one shooting chance with the goalkeeper. There was the Smith Rowe chance where he shot fairly tamely at the goalkeeper. So again, if we're looking for some green shoots here, I know he didn't score a lot of goals, but I think there was something different about the way that we got the ball towards the opposition penalty area. The execution in the final moment wasn't there, but I think that's maybe progress. Again, maybe that's just me looking for something to be really positive about. It's not necessarily that, but like you say, as a fan, you want to see these positive things. And I just feel that with the right pass at a couple of moments, if Saka's got the right touch, we probably score more goals and make this game a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I am worried about us going forward, and the question that I still ask myself is, what is Arteta ball, if anything? What are they trying to achieve? We saw how we were trying to attack in a limited way, obviously at the start, with as did the entire world, give it to Tierney, and so it's great that we're trying to develop that differently. But I still, without being a tactical genius, you've got many people on the Arseblog staff who can do that better than I can. But I do feel I think that I still think there's a lot of pressure on Saka. I still think that we have to work out the spaces that Odegaard and ESR are going to take up, Emile Smith Rowe are going to take up together. I still wonder how we can attack better at speed, and for us to attack better at speed, going back to what you said earlier on, we do need to see that formation more often. We do need them to, you want some muscle memory to kick in, right? For them to understand how to play with each other in such a way. And I think that maybe they're working it out and we're working it out with them. It's very difficult to do that in real time when there's points at stake. But that's why 2 back-to-back 1-0 wins against teams lower down the league are good, because those are games where that's just 2 more in the bank, basically. But I do think that there's an issue with the speed of the attacking and whether that attacking sort of quintet still know where to be and where the focus is as well, because we have got questions about how Aubameyang's performing up front through arguably no fault of his own, because again, it might be what the system's demanding. But that, I think, there's a few moving parts that aren't moving in sync at the moment still. Yeah. But it's encouraging to have those amount of players on the pitch still trying to work that out. And that's the training ground job. All we can do is sit and watch and wait and hope that it's in place certainly by Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was some suggestion that the pitch was very dry, that the grass was a bit long. I feel like that's obviously a tactic from Burnley. They want it that way, but I don't feel like that really is the key issue for us. I think as professional players, they should be able to come to terms with that. I mean, if you're looking at that as the reason why some of those attacking things didn't come off, or perhaps why the Ben White pass to Ramsdale was under hit, etc., I feel like it's clutching at straws just a little bit.
Well, it's interesting that there's only one goal and Odegaard stayed on his feet and sort of beat his chest rather than the now traditional knee slide. Do teams knee slide at Burnley? I always wonder, because wasn't it Vieira back in the day who injured himself?
That was in that Man United game, wasn't it, where he scored the goal to make it 2-0? The brilliant one that curled in, hit the crossbar, went down, and Schmeichel just had no chance. Yeah,
the David Platt game.
The David Platt header game.
He did himself in, but I do wonder if maybe Burnley have kept the pitch dry just because they don't want any fancy Dan celebrations as well. So not only to try and catch an errant Ben White pass, but just to stop some of these fancy Dans sliding on their knees like that.
Yeah, these artistic people. Yeah.
Sean Dyche doesn't believe any of that.
Yeah.
But it's the John Beckification of the. That's one for the old folks. John Beck at Cambridge. We used to do that in the corners. Yeah. We need to play in any conditions, right? So. So that certainly shouldn't be an issue. We need to be stronger, more muscular in the tackle, more muscular in the pass, more decisive in the pass, and that's not down to the slickness of a pitch. That's down to the training and the quick speed of thought, which isn't quite clicking yet, but as I say, it's encouraging.
Yeah, hopefully, it is a small little green shoot, something we can build on, particularly ahead of the next league game. I'm not necessarily talking about the next game because we play AFC Wimbledon in midweek, and I think there's going to be some heavy rotation for that. But obviously, if things could click from an attacking perspective in the North London derby, that would be very, very welcome. Indeed. But let's talk about the goal. I did like this from John Hossain, who's on the Discord on Patreon. He said, as good as the free kick was, how good also is it to notice that Barnes didn't jump? If he had, he might have blocked it. Perhaps he only jumps when he can elbow a player.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't mind. Ashley Barnes is kind of like, he's like their sort of Shane Long, isn't he? Kind of like just sort of annoying, but sort of secret. Quite good. Does anyone else do you feel that way about him, or was he on your hate list? Ashley Barnes.
Not really on my hate list. I think the Ashley I kind of hate is Westwood, the guy in midfield who hacked down Bukayo Saka. He just has one of those faces. It's like someone tried to clone Kieran Trippier's face to make the most annoying face in the world, and then stuck it onto Ashley Westwood, and he now has the most annoying face in the world. So Barnes doesn't register as much for me as Westwood.
Yeah, but it was a lovely free kick. I did see someone saying, and I saw someone saying, probably you actually, that you were surprised to not see Pepe over the ball.
Yeah,
because that was his position. But it was a gorgeous free kick, and great for Odegaard to is that his first on? Yeah,
first of the season.
I was just thinking that. I mean, he did leave. He left Real Madrid to come to... It's really encouraging that he left Real Madrid to come to a side that came 8th last year, and he looks really, really comfortable with it and comfortable at the club. And they just... whether it was a celebration around him, and also there were some of the altercations where the players came around, it does seem like something is... And the youth has obviously got a big part of this. It does seem like there's something being built there, that they're all comfortable with each other. And I don't know, I just sort of, again, looking for shoots as a fan, green shoots as a fan, I did enjoy how much they sort of enjoyed the goal for him. And for us to be useful again from set pieces would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, when it doesn't work for you, when your attack doesn't quite click, if you have somebody in the team who can produce a moment of quality to win you a game, it is very useful. Just that sort of, not quite a goal out of nothing, but a goal, or making the most of an opportunity, like the foul on Saka. I think that could have been a really good chance if he played the right pass to Pepe. Given the way that the rest of the passes went, maybe he would have played it 3 feet behind him. That would have gone missing. But, we really punished their cynical foul.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was it Palace last season where Odegaard dug that one out to the back post. Was it to Pepe on the back post?
Martinelli
in the back post, and we really needed, the game was drifting in the same way, and it does need just a moment of precision when you're not taking the chances that we are now. So now we've got two. Do we have a free kick taker on the right-hand side? We have a right-footed free kick taker.
Aubameyang and Lacazette tend to take those, don't they? They're the ones who are usually over those. Lacazette more than Aubameyang, I think, but obviously he's not in the team, so I would assume Aubameyang for a free kick like that.
Yeah. So for that to for that to connect and that to be the only chance that we have, the fact that we take slightly better corners now than we used to, while we're struggling for proper offensive progress, then those are going to be sort of super important. And look, if you're that's what's supposed to happen in championship teams. Go away, one chance away from home, taken properly. So that was very enjoyable.
At the other end, there was a bit of drama with the penalty incident. VAR came to our rescue after Anthony Taylor pointed to the spot. Ben White, there were concerns, and I've got a question about him for the second part of the show, so I don't want to delve too much into him. But I think what was strange about his performance was, going into it, people were saying, can he compete in the air? Can he deal with the big strikers in the air? He had a tough time against Brentford, which I think was maybe a little bit overblown, but he won plenty of headers against Burnley. I think all the defenders competed pretty well, but where people view Ben White's strength is on the ball, basically, how he passes it, how he carries it. I think Burnley quite cleverly cut off the lane where he drives into to carry the ball, but his passing wasn't quite there throughout the game. There were a couple of mistakes on the ball where he got caught on the ball. I think one in the first half, or maybe it was the second half, I can't quite remember, where he should have just got rid of it, basically. I know that's probably anathema to him. He doesn't want to just lump it. He wants to try and keep possession. But there are times, and I'm sure he'll learn, he's still only 23, there are times where you do need to just get rid of it. But that back pass to Aaron Ramsdale was under hit. And while VAR, you might say, got us out of the hole we were in, I think we've got to give credit to Ramsdale, who won the ball. It was Ramsdale who saved White's bacon more than VAR.
Well, first of all, just before we go on to the more grown-up stuff, just to say Anthony Taylor is still a shitbag, and he gives his decisions, like they all do, with so much confidence, and so it's really, really pleasing when they're wrong and when they have to go back on themselves. I'm not past that just yet, but So back to the back pass. Ramsdale does great. Gets him out of jail, but also with Ben White, and I know we're going to talk about this. I mean, has he had a consistent? He's only just started his own career at a club, and has had different formations and partners all the time. It's an unsettling job, with 2 weeks of international nonsense in the way as well. So, but as you say, we're going to talk about him later on. But yeah, Ramsdale definitely was quick off his line, and how many times has that gone against that in the last however many years? I can't remember too many fun VAR calls since it came in. Maybe because there haven't been fans around, at least involving Arsenal. So that was good, and it was especially good because Sean Dyche pulled out all the stops.
There's a wonderful screenshot of him that I took during the game, and he's standing there with his hands on his head. Maybe I'll post a link to it in the show notes. I don't want to use it for the podcast image today because nobody needs to see that for 60 or 90 minutes or however long this thing goes on their podcast player, but I'll post a link to it. And he's standing there with his hands on his head, and he's like, he can't believe that it's gone against him. But it's the right decision. It is absolutely the right decision. I think we would be remiss not to talk about Ramsdale and to talk about the influence that he had on this performance, because if there's defensive commitment from the likes of Gabriel, from Tommy Asu, who was excellent, the 25 odd clearances that the back four made in total, I think we were helped by a goalkeeper who was dominant in the air, who came and didn't just punch things, he caught things, which I think really helped alleviate some of the pressure that Burnley were trying to put on us.
Yeah, you always hear so much about defences being made confident by a keeper, and you also don't know how much, without having played in that position, without knowing what a difference that can make. But certainly if the supporters are anything to go by, and if the defence feel anything like the supporters do, then it's a brand new day with Ramsdale in goal, right? Maybe they've approached it the same way that we have, in the sense that they want to believe it's true, so it's happening. He looks more confident all of a sudden. He's turned around a fan base that was probably skeptical, to say the least, but was also ready for change, because Leno has fallen a little bit behind recently. So I'm trying to be kind of balanced in the sense that how much of it is an actual physical and emotional change or tactical change, and how much of it is just us again wanting to believe. But so far so good. He's vocal. That save off, who was it off? The acrobatic one.
Oh, it was the guy who came on the.
Let's just call him the Burnley player. That Burnley player. Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but he was. But that's, I saw that and I went, yeah, great, Ramsdale. But you think, hold on, Leno has done that as well, many times. But yeah, catching with his leg up, like one of those. That there was a
good one, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was always that was a Leno, not Leno. That was a Layman snide one. He got that in. Always nice to see that. A bit of an FU to the attacker. So he's come on in. No one expected this to happen this fast. And that's a little bit of, dare I say, a bit of kind of ruthless, kind of gimlet-eyed Arteta. He went for his man, spent a long time going to get his man, and has put him straight in after the break. And it makes him very hard to remove now. So
yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, because we had a question on it, but seeing as we're talking about it, we might as well do it on the Discord from Cluck the Rotisserie Chicken, who says, do you think it was Arteta's plan all along to quickly introduce Ramsdale to the team, hence the hefty price tag and the summer-long push, or do you think the opening results forced his hand earlier than expected? He said, I think we were all in agreement that 25 million for a backup keeper was way too expensive, but that Ramsdale was getting groomed into the number one spot this season. Could it be that Arteta's intention all along was to sign a straight-up first-choice keeper? I mean,
yeah, it would feel so, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, James put up something from one of his Athletic articles, didn't he? Talking about that specific aspect of Ramsdale's character, like he was willing to fight. He was, his personality, his character is a good team, like a good squad member. With a humility about him, seems to have played a part. With that price tag, he was going to come in this season, of course, and I think we are surprised at it. And it has been made easier by the fact that there has been a kind of shaky start. But look, let's not he's not Renarson. Leno was never Renarson levels of incompetence. And I guess, I don't know, as I get older as a fan, I think when you go looking for something, you'll find it, and for example, the Brentford goal, where he could have been stronger, but, would we be saying that if we weren't looking for it? Do you see what I mean? But it does feel like Ramsdale has come in as a step up, maybe because it's just a shiny new toy and the defence feel that too, but maybe that's coincided with Gabriel being back in the room. And maybe that's coincided with Tomiyasu coming in. Right, serious bloody problem for us when you think about set pieces and the people that Cedric or Maitland-Niles or whoever have been there marking certain set pieces. So maybe that's helped as well. Look, it's just a collective kind of upward tick. So so far so good for the keeper. But I think he's there to stay for a while now, and it'd be interesting to see how Leno responds to it. I think almost certainly either way he was never going to be there at the end of the season anyway. Thank you. He was going to
go on.
Yeah, he was never going to be there at the end of the season anyway. So between but whether he'll get phased out, given that we don't have any very, very many cup competitions or anything anyway, it's going to be a lonely. He might not even make it past January.
I enjoyed the bit as well. There was a bit in the second half where I think Tierney went down with cramp, and our friend Ashley Westwood came over to sort of remonstrate with him while he was on the ground. I think he thought he might have been time wasting or something like that, and Ramsdale just stuck an arm out to hold him off. And I like that. I like that character. I like, I like when players stand up for each other. I think there's something to his personality or what he brings to the team in terms of his character that Arteta feels, is probably missing from Leno. Leno is a different kind of guy. He's much quieter, I think, and everything else. You don't get to this level without having some personality or some character, but certainly Ramsdale and Leno are different.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Ramsdale's shot stopping. I don't remember much of it from his campaigns before. We know that Leno was good at. I mean, Leno did get us out of jail on some occasions, but I guess it's just the commanding of the box and that spreading of serenity amongst the back players and the nervous fans, which is gone and has been very, very hard to get back. So I think it's a new path now. Yeah.
So look, it's promising, like you say, early days, but so far so good when it comes to Ramsdale. You mentioned Gabriel before we go on to part two. I think it is something we should talk about because he has come back in. He has played a part in 2 clean sheets. And I thought he was really, really good in this game. Everyone talks about how Gabriel was hugely impressive in the air. He gave us presence. Ben White actually won more headers than Gabriel in this game. So the eye test versus the stats test is quite an interesting one at times. But he gave us a physical presence. He wasn't troubled by the likes of Barnes and Wood to any great extent. There was one brilliant tackle in the box, his sort of acrobatic hook away when they, had a moment of danger. I think that's, on top of, if you remember last week, there was a brilliant block late in the game. I don't want to draw immediate comparisons, but it reminded me, those two things sort of reminded me a bit of the kind of defending that we used to get from Sol Campbell at times, to absolutely snuff out a moment of danger. You look at a game and it's like Burnley didn't have that many shots, Norwich didn't have that many shots, but a lot of that is down to how well and how committedly we defended, but it's there for him now, isn't it? Because his first season in England was a bit tough. There was all the weirdness of last season anyway, being behind closed doors, and he had COVID, he was in and out, etc., etc. He looks like he's found his feet, and I think Arteta talked a little bit afterwards about how he's more settled now. He understands the language better. He can communicate better with his teammates. I'm hopeful that he can really take a step forward this season, and from what we've seen so far, again, it's early days, etc., but it does look promising.
Yeah, we used to talk a lot in Arsenal terms, or I guess in football terms, we used to talk about a lot about partnerships, and that's settled. There's so many new players and there's so many young players, and Gabriel spent half his time playing alongside the quite exciting clown show that was David Luiz at times. He's been next to a Rob Holding. He's one of the things that his recovery, as you mentioned in that Sol Campbell, he's athletic, he's big, and he's fast, and so that recovery was there. But there was a real nervousness on the ball at times. Maybe with better players or settled players around him, that'll go. He needs to stay fit. For us to get a partnership, for him to get a partnership with Ben White, Tomiyasu, and Tierney, he needs to be fit, be comfortable, but know that the same person is gonna, if he passes it into a Thomas Partey, for example. How much of a relief must it be as a central defender to know that his first instinct is to turn away and to spread the game rather than giving it back to you in the same tight space that you've just got rid of it? That's a big thing. So we just want to, you want to see Ryan, you want to see some confidence, but he's got that athleticism and that kind of thou shalt not pass attitude that we kind of want at the back. And I kind of feel secure with thinking about him in a foot race with someone or going up for a header with someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's been a while.
It has been a while. And look, I think when you look at the team itself in terms of its size, there is something different about it when you've got Gabriel in there, when you've got Tomiyasu at right back, who's 6 foot plus Ben White. I know he's not the tallest central defender, but Ramsdale, there is a bit of presence back there, and you do need that. You do need that.
I am. Although I know I've done this and known you long enough to know that the two things you care very little about, and that I care massively about, are the height of fullbacks. That bothers me. I'm still not comfortable with Tomiyasu's height, but given that he's quite good,
what do you suggest he do about that?
I remember once talking to, or being talked at by Martin Keown at an event, and he said the reason why Giroud never made it as a super top defender was that his bum wasn't big enough, his haunches weren't big enough to be in a permanent. It was, and if you can imagine if you can imagine Martin Keown with his hands out in that kind of way, I'm doing it now. He's doing that. He's doing his hands out as if he's jockeying someone, and he's looking out the corner of his eye like he does Martin Keown. You can see him doing it, and he's scuttling from side to side like a crab in a conference room at Arsenal, explaining that central defenders spend most of their game in a crouch and running in a crouch at top speed. That's why you need to have. That's why Sol Campbell was so good, because he had a massive backside. Because he spent. So what I'm suggesting is that Tomiyasu spends his time in a crouch, like Martin Keown was demonstrating that day, and then he'd be 5'9", and then he'd be my perfect fullback size. Right.
Okay, well, we'll get that in a missive over to Arsenal right now. And what the funny thing about that is Martin Keown is such a serious guy. I'm like, he really is.
You can see that he really, really meant it. He was there. He had a few of us round. And he said, the thing is, you need to be here, in this position here, and you're jockeying, and you've got a defender on your left-hand side, and everyone listening to this can see Martin Keown doing it in that way because we've seen him do it on TV, living the moment. So, that's something to think about.
Brilliant. All right, well, look, hopefully Tomiyasu's size does not impact the level of his performance or how much you might warm to him as a player down the years at Arsenal. All right, well, look, we'll take a short break here. We're going to come back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Twitter at DJ Tayo and at Arseblog, and also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. Tayo, as you are the guest, I will give you the honour, as they say, and you can have the first question.
Okay, let's go. I don't think this is the case, but it's got words in it like Arteta and Xhaka, so that will set us off. Someone has said to me, King Henry _14. I'm happy with that. Would Arteta's job be on the line when he brings Xhaka back for the Tottenham game and he gets sent off, or does something Xhaka like which leads us to losing to them? So would Arteta's job be on the line when he brings Xhaka back and then he gets sent off, or does something Xhaka-like?
Oh, there were a load of questions about, like, should Granit Xhaka come back? Will Granit Xhaka come back into the team? Etc., etc. I think he probably will, which isn't to say I'm necessarily pleased about it, but just based on what we've seen in the past, I suspect that for a North London derby, he might bring Xhaka back, or will almost certainly bring Xhaka back. What I would say is, Xhaka, when he has been full Xhaka, has usually managed on his return to be less Xhaka. And you know what I mean? Like, he does the stupid thing, but then afterwards he goes on this he has this little door that he goes through. It's the path to redemption. The Granit Xhaka goes, oh, I fucked it up. Here I go again. And he goes so far down the path of redemption, and then he does another Xhaka thing. Yeah. So my hope is that if he is picked for the North London derby, the proximity to his last Xhaka moment is enough for him not to do anything to Xhaka. That
is an excellent point. And how the crumbs that we have to reach for. It's too close to his last Xhaka brain fart for another one to come so soon. He'll always play him in a North London derby at home. Was it a few weeks ago he said something, the core of experienced players he mentioned that were supposed to guide the younger players didn't fill me with confidence when one of those players is Xhaka, obviously. One of those players is captain by default. One of them is his support striker who's not starting. He's dropped the keeper. So that's disappeared quite quickly. Of course we'll see him back. I'm not necessarily against seeing him back for a derby. The new midfield that we're trying to put together still seems a little bit too new for a game of this kind of magnitude. But maybe I'm just expressing the same kind of caution that we accuse Arteta of sometimes. Although I wouldn't be mad seeing him in there. I'll just be crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I've sort of reached the end of my tether with him, to be honest.
No, really?
Yeah, but I can I
mean, you have, Andrew. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I can't muster up any more justifications for the stupid stuff, you know? So I'm like you, I'm hoping that he doesn't do anything stupid, because when he is good, he can be quite good. It's just, I think I said on the blog a while back, like he's like a postman who, you know, most of the time delivers your mail absolutely perfectly, puts it through the letterbox, but like a couple of times a year, he just fucks a brick through the window. At some point, you're like, I think I would like a new postman. But there you go. Let's see. Okay, I've got a question here from Jensen Armour, who says, are you starting to get concerned with how often Tierney and Partey get cramp or injured? I certainly am. We play one game a week now. Surely they should be fit enough to play 90 minutes a week. Should we be relying on them short term? And there was another one from Arsenal Oz. AUS, who's AFC Australia on Twitter. He said there were several remarks on social media of the players looking knackered and unfit. Arteta blamed the warmer weather, and he mentions the fact that Feyenoord's coach appeared to criticise Arsenal's training methods because Reiss Nelson picked up an injury when he went, which I think had more to do with the fact that Reiss Nelson just hasn't been match fit, rather than any sort of outright criticism of Arsenal's training methods or fitness methods or anything like that. But, you know, when you are only playing once a week, regardless of how intense the games might be, you would expect a player like Tierney, like Partey, to be able to get through it without cramping. Maybe that's part of the Burnley pitch thing again. I don't quite know, but it is a little bit of a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, it does worry. Like, you don't want your supposedly more robust or physical players to be the ones who go down so easily. The Partey thing, I just really want to enjoy him, and we haven't really had a proper chance to, really, for one reason or another. And there is a bit, at some point you got to say whether it's unlucky, how much of it's unlucky, or maybe it's how much down to his physical condition, although people have pointed out that he never had these problems before he came to Arsenal. Whereas with Tierney, I think we knew that Tierney was brittle in some aspects. I mean, he came to us injured, didn't he? So there is an element of that, and he gets through so much work. He gets through so much work at at that kind of lung busting kind of in that lung busting way. So yeah, it is a worry. Well, there was a supplementary question to that from Guy at YUG72 Guy saying, do you think it's worth playing Partey midweek for an hour to get some more match fitness? Well, one level you go, yeah, that'd be great, but then you could also see him picking up a hammy there as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's worrying, and it's also worrying because even before when we've had in our more illustrious past, when we've had players going down injured, you felt a little bit better about the replacements coming in. I mean, if you want to go all the way back to whenever Vieira got injured, then you didn't kind of worry when Edu stepped in, for example.
Yeah.
But that's not the case now because of the sort of opacity of the squad and where we are kind of now. We're not in a position now where we've got that fabled 2 in each position kind of thing. So it just becomes a bit more of a worry each time. But you can't keep protecting. You can't keep protecting them. You've got to get out there and do it. And to hell with it.
Yeah, I suppose the thing you would say about Partey is that he is only just back after a fairly long injury absence and an injury which I think he's probably still managing a little bit, or certainly they're being cautious about. So, he played 30 minutes, didn't he, against Norwich, thereabouts. He's played 75 minutes against Burnley, and I think he signalled at one point during the game, I thought, maybe he's just telling them something. I hope he's not asking to come off, and then he came off. So maybe it is just a case that he is, building match fitness. I wouldn't put him anywhere near the team for the midweek game. Wouldn't have him in the squad at all. Maybe you could have him on the bench, but it's one of those where I think if anything happened in a League Cup game against Burnley, even if the League Cup, or against AFC Wimbledon, even if the League Cup has a bit more importance to us this season than it might have done in previous seasons because of the lack of Europe, if something happens to him in that game, you just don't get any forgiveness from anybody, do you? It's like, why are you playing him in a game ahead of the North London derby? Even if you could try and justify it by, we want to sort of get him more into his rhythm, I just don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, for sure. I've got one here from Tom Stratton.
Okay.
Who says, do we need to revisit our analysis of and this is in inverted commas, Edu sacking all the scouts episode following this summer's business? Early days, of course, but the initial signs are that player identification has been solid. What do you think of that? Do we need to revisit that analysis?
I suppose it's too early to say, really. I wonder if the scouting thing is really interesting because at the period when all the scouts were fired, there was no football for any scouts to go and watch, or certainly they couldn't do it because everything was being played behind closed doors. So I just wonder if there was an economical aspect to it, but also it's one of those things, isn't it, where people have talked for years about how we need to improve our scouting. The scouting system that we had has brought us some good players. There's no question about that. The Francis Cajigao brought us some really excellent players, and Martinelli was one of those. And it's easy to look at those as successes, but also our scouting brought us players like Mustafi and Xhaka to an extent, and Lucas Perez and things like that, where these players weren't really at the level that we needed them to be at, so you could make the case that there was a need for a change. So I think it's a bit too early. I like what I've seen so far from the players that we've brought in, but I think we need for a bit more time to go by before we can make any definitive judgments on whether these signings have been a success. I mean, going back to Mustafi, do you remember we had like this run of 20-odd games or something when he came in and we didn't lose, and everyone was thinking, well, this is good value for money. He looks like quite a good player. And then over time, you realise that you could not have been more wrong. So I think we just need a little bit more time.
Yeah, I think Squillaci was quite good for his first couple of games as well. So,
that's exactly it. I mean, there's a player who, really should have been able to come in and make a difference because, the experience that he had and everything else, but it just did not work for him. While we're sort of on this, do you mind me following up with this one from Nono Sayaya on the Discord? He says, it's early times, but a lot of the new signings seem to have the soft, intangible character about themselves and seem up for the fight. Do you think this was an intentional goal of the summer scouting or more coincidence?
Yeah, good question. I think it's linked with the age and the profile of the image of the team that Arteta has spoken about. A band of brothers, for one of the better cliche. Obviously, Smith Rowe and Saka have kind of have grown up together. You've got people of a certain age blending together, like on a journey that none of them have come from a winning position before, so they've all got something ahead of them. George Graham, obviously spoke about that years ago with the profile of players that he was picking up around the time of, Lee Dixon, Steve Bold and so forth. I'm clearly not making a comparison in terms of quality there. Sure. But in terms of trying to get a band of players together who are willing to grow together and will listen to the manager, whatever it is, and there's a question about what it is that he's imparting. But yeah, so I do think it's not a coincidence that the profile of the team and the character that is being spoken about is in evidence, because it's a greener bunch who are doing stuff together. Even from last season, where you had a failing Chelsea reject. You might say which one. I just realised as soon as I said it, that doesn't narrow it down at all. But Arteta was playing football. I mean, Arteta was trying to manage people who were around. I've always found it odd, the idea of a manager managing players who were around when they were playing. You can't have the same level of, unless it's a super winning one, a Guardiola style player. Then you can't have. You can't respect in the same way, surely, And now you've got a group of players. There's a distance between the manager and them. They're doing stuff together. They're all of the same age together, and they're kind of fighting together. You say Ramsdale protecting Tierney. I think that's the same picture. Was that the same picture that James posted? As well, saying that he really liked that as well. Look, that's all you ask for in the famous Tony Adams. You need 7 in the team, to look out for each other and so forth. So I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, I don't either. I think there's something nice about it as well, and I think the age thing plays a part. I think a lot of these players still have something to prove and things that they want to achieve in the game, and maybe it's easier to have that sort of camaraderie with guys who are sort of your own age, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, does Ramsdale, and I'm not saying he wouldn't do this, but would he feel necessarily the need to protect Aubameyang? Like I said, I'm sure he would in that circumstance. I'm sure he'd do the exact same thing. But when it's somebody who's maybe a bit closer to your age, your own age, that it's sort of more, you connect more with them. You know what I mean? Those relationships, those friendships within the team, I think are a bit more organic. It sounds wanky, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so. And look, you have to try and find positives in the fact that we've got less football, but there's more time on the training ground. There's more time trying to form a character and a personality, because everyone's doing it at the same time. We've got new players, we've got a new manager, we've got a new, it feels a new position that we need to accept ourselves as a club. So it's a really big season for that kind of character building, for that, dare I say it, a new DNA for the club. Yeah,
there was another question here that it comes from Robinho, who's at Musketeer Robbie, who says, are there genuine signs that the culture is changing for the better? The new signings seem to inspire the team, and the fans were brilliant on Saturday. It feels like a bit of a connection is developing between fans, manager and players. And like we saw at the end of the game, there was a bit of a, I think there was some stuff thrown by some of the Burnley fans, and the Arsenal fans reacted, and, crowd trouble is maybe going a little bit too far. Although I have to say, when I saw the crowd doing that, and then I was thinking about the energy crisis in the UK at the moment and the return to imperial measurements, I was like, the only thing missing here is a fucking miners' strike. You know what I mean? But I do think there is something there in that. Like, of course, there are all these doubts about Arteta and the way that the club is going and where we are and all those kind of things, but things like that where there is a connection between the players, where Ramsdale is celebrating with the fans because the other 10 players are at the other end of the pitch, where people are kind of standing up for each other. You know, those things, while you can't quantify them, I think they are kind of important.
If you believe in something enough, if you want something to happen enough, then that's how it begins to manifest, right? And the club has felt like it's in stasis for a while. We obviously didn't have, for very obvious reasons, there wasn't a connection between fans and players over the last 18 months because that's been denied us. So we're looking for that new energy, and that's why it was important that Willian's not there anymore. That's why it's important that David Luiz isn't there anymore. That's why it seemed like a relief and a break when it looked like Xhaka was leaving, because we need that new energy at the club, because that kind of, you know, it's like when in a match, it's like when one tackle electrifies the crowd. Yeah. Right. So that's where we're looking at. That's what we're looking at now. We're taking these incidents. We might be in that fan way. We might be adding sort of levels of import to them, which aren't rational. But by doing so, it becomes the truth. You know, it becomes the fact that we've got a young team who are fighting for each other. It becomes a thing that we're not going to get rolled over by orcish teams from up north. And then you come back and you believe all of that, which is why it will be extremely important when Xhaka, you know, goes through Lo Celso in such a way that it's like that famous Sol Campbell slide tackle, which when he takes him all the way to the corner flag with a slide tackle, and then the crowd are on their toes. Yeah, that's why we're going to win 3-0 on Sunday. You know,
I like it. The optimism over the result and the execution of the Xhaka tackle are brilliant.
That's good. That'll work. So I've got one for you. Yeah, and it's something I wondered about actually because of the load on him. Ollie Tucker. At Ollie Tucker 93, saying, "What's your assessment of Saka's performances at the moment? Is his current form down to post Euros tiredness? Is it playing on the left, or just a natural dip in his development?"
I think maybe it could be a bit of all of those things. You know, he wouldn't be the first player to come back from an international tournament and take some time to find his feet again. You know, to struggle in the opening stages of a season. I think that happens with more experienced players than Bukayo Saka. It's a bit weird, isn't it, that I've seen people like really give him a hard time, and I'm thinking, come on, for fuck's sake, like he's only just gone 20 years of age, if he's even 20. You know, he was the bright thing in our season last season, and it's only a few games after he had a fairly traumatic experience. Let's remember, at the Euros, it wasn't just that he played in the tournament. It ended in a really traumatic way, even if there was this outpouring of love and affection for him. You know, he was subjected to some really unpleasant stuff as well, which I don't think he could just like compartmentalize or put to one side or immediately forget about. I know that it's like critics, isn't it? If you're a creative person of any stripe, that, you know, 10 people can give you a glowing review about your thing, but the one bad review is the one that sticks in your mind, you know?
Absolutely.
You know what it's like. So if you've got all these people giving you love, it still doesn't help you forget about the really nasty, horrible people out there. So I think he's been through a lot. I think he needs something for his season to spark into life. That's what it kind of feels like to me. I think there were signs in the Norwich game that he grew into it and was beginning to find his feet. I thought his performance against Burnley was not great at all. There were the moments I already talked about where his first touch let him down, and normally he's so safe and so secure in those areas. But I think I think he just needs something to get him going, and maybe it's the first goal of the 3-0 win on Sunday that will do that.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. I just remember what you said about the critics. I just remember I remember playing at Fabric and everyone sort of cheering at the end of my set. And there was two guys in the corner. One had said something to the other, who sort of laughed and crossed his arms. and that's literally all I thought about for about a month. After, what were they saying? What did I do wrong? What was it? Yeah. So yeah, I totally get that one. But no, I think that my thing with Saka is been everything that you just said, but the kind of undue. Of course, it's unfair pressure because we're all looking for kind of heroes. I remember a guy that we used to sit with, a guy called Sean. Every time any tricky winger, mostly Theo, would get the ball, he'd shout, he'd go on to do something, skippidydip, right?
Skippidydip, that's the tactical, yeah.
Skippidydip would mean just do something extraordinary by yourself, please, and get us out of this. And I just feel like there's a little element of that with Saka, and he's not that kind of, he's not that kind of player. The best goal that we scored last season was the one that he dovetailed with Lacazette and Smith Rowe for that,
West Brom, yeah.
For the West Brom game. He's not a player. He's obviously a brilliant player, but he's a brilliant player who works well with other players in tandem. And because we don't quite know what we are still at the moment, he's been asked to do a lot without masses of support. I think that's why it's important that Odegaard came into the sides to have another equally potent kind of attacking third. You want another player of a certain level to be on the board in that attacking third. I think he's at the moment being asked to do a lot with the kind of vestiges of with the remnants of the summer still on him.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it makes perfect sense that it hasn't come together just yet. We're 5 games in after a huge summer for a just turned 20-year-old player. Yeah. I'm not worried about it, but I do get the fact that he's not at the level that he was, and I'm not surprised by it either.
Yeah. Again, as well, worth pointing out, after a really grueling season, because it was so condensed after the lockdown and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's not anything surprising or new that a young player maybe just hits a little bit of a plateau in his development. Yeah. Maybe this is what it is, but I think we all know he's got the quality to do better, and I think he will do better. Just, give him some time. Lay off him. Maybe he needs a game or two out of the team. Who knows? But maybe he just needs that moment to get himself going. And as soon as he does,
and just as a general point about the young attacking players that we've got. I mean, thankfully, it's not as long a season in some ways. Thankfully, obviously, I wish we had more games. But there's going to be another dip because you're talking about young players over a very long domestic Premier League season. So there's going to be those kind of dips, not just for Saka as he's going through now, but, with Odegaard and with Smith Rowe and with, dare I say it, we're expecting Tierney to perform at, this insane level for 38 games. So that's where the squad or the backups we'll have to get through some sticky periods later on because because away from the first team, the quality is not there. But that's down to our position and who we are now, and that's what we're trying to sort of fight our way out of season by season now.
Here's a question from the Discord from San Carrico, who says, a lot is being discussed about Arsenal overpaying for Ben White and he not being a great defender. A £50 million player should be oven ready, etc., etc. He says, is the comparison with John Stones a reasonable one? Stones was similarly priced and at the same age as White when he signed for Man City, but also was evidently still learning. Now he's arguably one of the best defenders in the league. I would appreciate your thoughts, he says. And just maybe some general thoughts on Ben White as well. Like, there's been a lot of discussion about him. When you do pay £50 million for a player, there is spotlight. That is the reality. You can't escape that. But it feels to me like it's way, way too soon to make any kind of real judgment on him and how he is as a player.
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon it briefly in part one. Like, he's 5 games into his Arsenal career. It started off a really, really kind of turgid evening against Ivan Toney and co at Brentford, and that was tricky for him. And as I said in the first half, he's got to get used to playing with a settled team in a new team, and he's been asked to skippity dip a little bit every time he gets the ball to play a kind of laser pass forward. I mean, look, it's early, and the fact that, as you said, the stats versus the eye, the fact that the thing that he was supposed to be slightly weaker on, he was he was dominant in his defending, in his duels. That's another reason why we shouldn't draw conclusions too quickly with a new player. I mean, I've started thinking, you can get all the stats in your head, and I'm thinking the one about his duels and whether he's got the. I started caring about like his upper body strength and his sort of blinking and seeing like the Athletic logo in my eyelids. Basically, it's kind of these kind of lots of mad stats and stuff like that. He's a better defender than we had this time last season. It seems he did. We saw that. We saw enough of him at Brighton compared to what we've had in our defence for the last 2 seasons. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
For that reason alone, it's an improvement.
Yeah.
So the money's the money. He's English. It happens. Brighton extracted the fee from us that they knew that they could. Arteta, when he gets it into his, I mean, I don't know what Arteta's like at poker, but Ramsdale and White, he just kind of pinned his colours to the mast, and the accountants were going, well, he's not deviating. Just like his hair, his hair and his mind are not for moving. So let's get every damn penny out of him. Yeah. So look, let's see.
Yeah, I look forward to the Athletic article on Ben White's X-Pec, to measure his upper body strength. Have you got one there?
Yeah. Let me get a question for you. Right. So yes, this is from Sheriff. At Sheriff Kader, Kader. What was the last Arsenal game where we played good football for the whole game? Not a move or a half, but solid at the back and impressive attack all game. I don't remember it. This style of winning, but playing crap, is too much like Emery.
That's a really good question. Obviously the League Cup game a few weeks ago, but that I think has to be put in a special category. I think if we're talking Premier League, I can't remember either. I think last season felt like a kind of war of attrition in a way, to what's the word that Arteta uses quite a lot? He said we have to suffer together, and I think, to be fair, he made everyone suffer with some of the football that we played last season. The West Brom game that you mentioned was a really good one. I think there were a couple of performances in the Europa League. Did we go and beat Sparta Prague or Slavia Prague 4-0 away from home? But
you're doing better than me. I was going to go back to the FA Cup run.
Oh yeah, there were some games last season, but they don't happen with enough. We beat Leeds 4-2, didn't we? So there were performances where I think we were pretty decent. It's just we don't seem to be able to do it with any kind of consistency, and that's why again I'm a bit pleased and encouraged by the decision to go with that team at Burnley away from home. Where I think people would have understood, at least, if he'd been a bit more cautious, if he'd stuck in, an extra man in midfield alongside Thomas Partey just to give us a bit more control in that area. I think some people would have said, well, that might have made a lot of sense. So picking that team at least is some kind of acknowledgement that we've got to do things differently, to try and do things better, to try and be more dangerous as a team, to have more players on the pitch who can do the thing. What do you call it? The skippity dip. You know,
yeah.
we have our back five, and then we've got 6 skippity dippers in there to, you know, or maybe Partey is only a half a skippity dip. He's I don't know which he is, the skippity or the dip. But you know what I mean? Just that idea that we need more players on the pitch who can produce something in the attacking third is encouraging. Whether it plays out over the coming weeks, we'll have to wait and see. There are some games, obviously, after the North London derby where I think you would, like these games, expect Arsenal to win on paper. How convincingly we can win them, if we win them at all, remains to be seen. But you know, I'm willing to give it another little while to wait and see what we can produce.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still super concerned about the attacking side of things.
Yeah.
The fact that I mean, obviously we all are, and as we said, a lot of the questions reflect that. The fact that we're going to have to score 2 on Sunday because of the inevitable
3. We're scoring 3. Yeah.
Oh, 3. Sorry, yeah, because
Remember?
they're getting the inevitable one from.
You're hurting my heart already, and it hasn't even happened.
Yeah, but it's kind of coming. There was a question about that. I think the answer is obvious, but it does get us to talk about it because we can't pretend it's not going to happen. James Byrne, if I may go again, James Byrne 89 was asking, ahead of the NLD, which squad would you honestly rather have? He says Spurs look dreadful, but Kane and Son are, he says, arguably world-class. Love that. Still proper Arsenal fan. They're clearly world-class, but he can't bring himself to do it. My kind of guy. Kane and Son are arguably world-class. Meanwhile, we have stacks of potential, but without any players even close to that level in the present. Which squad would you rather have?
Well, obviously ours, because they're not all Tottenham cunts. I think it's Clive who says on the Arsenal Vision podcast that Spurs have got a problem coming down the line. They don't realise it. Maybe they do realise it, but, you know, Kane's 28 and wanted to leave. Son is 29. I think he's signed a new deal, hasn't he? But, you know, these guys are not getting any younger, and we're sort of in that position ourselves in the attacking end, aren't we, with Aubameyang and Lacazette, where we've got something at least to sort out in at least one of those positions, or with one of those guys come the summer. So, you know, whatever, I can't possibly choose them. I just can't. You know, even if we were, I was going to say, even if we were terrible, and we have been terrible, so if we were way worse than we are right now, I still couldn't bring myself to pick them in any context whatsoever. It just goes against everything I believe in. So I'm going to stick with ours. We've got the potential. Maybe we'll never realize it. Maybe, you know, in 6 months' time, we're looking at all these young players and thinking, uh-oh, that didn't work. But, you know, I have to have the belief. I have to side with my own team. You know, there's no
100%.
There's no other position I can take. It's like I need Arsenal to win every game. You know, whatever my concerns might be, the idea that I could, I just have to believe that we can and will win every game, which is why I suppose things get disappointing. You can be realistic and look at it, but my outlook is always the same.
Well, which is why you end up having prefixes to the words Norwich and Burnley with they become only Norwich, only Burnley, because Arsenal have to win every game, and even in the inevitable, I haven't seen too many. I think after the storm a few years ago, nobody does those half and half teams anymore, do they? Not half of those joint squads.
Oh yeah. That was the famous Ozil cup of tea gif. The guy who did that, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So even if we were still playing that game, I'd still put Aubameyang up front just because I can't.
Exactly.
The
combined 11 thing is, you know, it's bullshit.
Yeah, he's due a captain's goal, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Where was the? Oh, let me see if I can find this. This is the bit now where I go boom, 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 and you go, you should be editing this out. I can't find it. Was it on the Discord? It was on the Discord. Hang on. It was on the Discord, and it comes from... Jesus Christ.
I've got it. if it's what you think, was it from Mr. GSL?
No, it was on the Discord from the real Chicken Dipper, who says, "Good morning. What time should Aubameyang leave his home for the North London derby?"
Yeah,
Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon. Somebody give him a tent. He can sleep on the pitch like Arshavin. Remember that time when he did the Boy Scout thing?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Mr. GSL, Georges Lambro, has asked, I mean, should Aubameyang be dropped for the North London derby? Simple question and simple answer, really.
No.
I'll ask you.
No.
Yeah, no,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't drop him. I mean, he scored our goal against Norwich. I know he didn't have a goal-scoring performance against Burnley, but I think there were a couple of moments where he was in the positions where if the final ball had come to him, you know, there was one from Pepe in particular where it really just needed Pepe to roll the ball into his path, and I think it's a goal for Aubameyang, and it was one of those where the pass was underhit, whether it was the pitch or not the pitch, is irrelevant. I think that was the chance where Aubameyang would have tucked it away and made the game safe. I think it was about halfway through the second half. So no, I wouldn't drop him for that. I think Lacazette will start in midweek. I think he's got to give some of the younger attacking players, Martinelli, Lacazette will probably start, because I think you need to give him, if he is the number 2 striker as he appears to be at this moment in time, you do need to give him some playing time. So I think he'll start on Wednesday, but for me it will be Aubameyang. You?
I mean, undoubtedly, yeah. Run some of those players ragged at home, big game. It's got a smart that he missed the last one still. Yeah, without a doubt. And he needs to... I do think there's a purple patch in him still. Again, this is based on nothing grown up or technical, but there is a purple patch in him still, because he's still a fine striker. And hopefully with him, as we work out our own... I think we're all in agreement that the attacking thing needs to be honed by them playing together, and... Aubameyang will come again this season. He's too good not to. Yeah,
I agree. Okay, look, we'll do one more before we go, and I'll let you get back to the miserable grey weather in whatever terrible island it is you're on. That I would love to be on. Yeah, no problem. Cartoon Steve Bold, who's at Cartoon Bold, he says, after Aaron Ramsdale revealed that he and Kieran Tierney are fellow farmers... your thoughts, please, on which squad members would most likely have the following jobs in an alternate reality: 1, tree surgeon; 2, Apple Store genius; 3, farmer's market burrito don; and 4, estate agent.
Okay, so tree surgeon. The first name that came to mind was El Neni. I just think he's got an agricultural outdoorsness about him, kind of just roll his sleeves up and get on with it. Nothing fancy. I bet he's got I reckon El Neni's got rough hands, calluses on the end of his hands. They feel like he's done a day's work. So it's with that in mind that I can't see Emil Smith Rowe as a tree surgeon.
No.
I think he's got extremely fragrant hands and has never the youth team, his progress has meant that he's never ever rubbed his hands along a bark, because they've always been kind of in the best beauty product. So what was the second one?
Well, the second one was Apple Store genius, but I think 4 was estate agent. And I have to say, like, if you went to view a house and Callum Chambers and Ben White turned up to try and sell you a £600,000 100 square foot townhouse, which was a former garage, you wouldn't be at all surprised, would you?
No, I reckon Ben White gets up, licks his finger and puts his eyebrows down and just says, look the part, be the part, and then puts on his and is there at the front of the house, and him and Callum Chambers turn to each other and they say, sell the dream, babes. That day. Yeah, they definitely have got an estate agent vibe to them.
Yeah. What was it? What was the the thing from the movie with Alec Baldwin and Jack Lemmon, Glengarry Glen Ross.
What
was it? ABC? Always be closing.
Always
be closing.
Yeah.
The two of them have got that like tattooed in Gothic script on their inner arm, so if they forget, they can just look down. Oh yeah, ABC.
Absolutely saying that to each other, and Cedric's out the back, like looking really worried, going on about the leads. Like, I just need a good man in the side. That's all I need.
Yeah. What do you think? Apple Store Genius? Do we have one of those?
It's got to be one of the younger players who like their phones like a sixth finger to them. So maybe like I can see Emil Smith Rowe doing that. I could just like no, it just goes don't worry about it. Just got to update it. Yeah. He's got maybe Emil Smith Rowe. Basically, he can make his phone. He's never looked up from his phone apart from when he's played football. So let's have him. And the burrito.
Farmer's Market burrito, Don. I mean, I'm only thinking of Granit Xhaka, but you know, he wraps up your burrito and then fucks it at your head.
Wraps it really tightly in the cellophane and then just like clubs you around the head with it.
Yeah.
There was a question about Nuno's beard over Arteta's hair, but I can't find it. So
I think I have that. I had that myself. It comes from Malherb Pelzer, who's at Malherb Pelzer on Twitter. In a battle of Arteta's hair and Nuno's beard, who would win? I mean, clearly Arteta's hair. It's solid. Yeah. Beards, you know, they might be big, they might be fulsome, but they're not solid. You know, you can.
There's a bit more gravitas with Arteta's hair. Nuno's beard, which I think over the season and certainly from Sunday will start looking more ragged as the more times that Lloris palms the ball into his own net, it'll get greyer in places. Not in that good Danny Glover way of grey, like, I'm too old for this shit. Not in that kind of way, but it's just going to start. It's going to start getting unruly as their season unravels. Oh,
you know, remember in Twin Peaks when Laura Palmer's dad, his hair went white overnight? It'd be amazing if by the end of the derby on Sunday, Nuno's just got a great big white fucking Santa Claus beard because of the goals that Lloris has thrown in and that Arsenal have scored and everything else. That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I'll be listening to see what you and James make of it, and I will hope that it's a goodly morning.
I will hope so too. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it, for taking time out of your holiday for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me as ever, and I look forward to your analysis ahead of, before and after the North London derby.
All right. Well, look, thank you guys for being here as always. Thank you for listening and all the rest. We'll be doing some stuff on Patreon during the week as well, preview podcasts and lots more besides. So until then, take it easy and we'll catch you on the next one.